In the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. Dear students, dear viewers, hello again with another video. Today I'm going to talk about literary movement. I consider the concept of literary movement or knowledge about the literary movement is very important for the analysis of any literary work and using any literary theory for the interpretation of this literary work. Why? Because let's first see the meaning. What do you mean by this concept? I have collected here a variety of meanings for literary movement to make things very clear for the learners. So, uh, first, it is considered as a kind of a grouping of writers who share similar aims, years of publication, and a base of operations. So, when we have got writers who have common aims, common year of publication, the same period of publication, and the same style, here are grouped into a group called a literary group or literary movement, because a literary movement is the classification or the division of the works of literature based on these common features, whether they are aims or year of publication or style. And this classification or division is in relation to time. So there is classification of writers and their works in connection to time. So each period of time there is a grouping of writers who share common features. This is why they are grouped into a particular what we call a literary movement. Now, another idea, knowing that what movement a poem, of course, a poem or any literary text belongs to can help you recognize certain characteristics associated with writing. Yes, so for example, if you come up with a work, for example, that is published in 1940, so here you are in the period of the Second World War. So in 1940, we are in the period of modernism, right? Then I can expect features of modernist period on this work that is, for example, published in 1940. Of course, 1940 is marking, for example, the end of modernism and moving. It is a period of movement towards postmodernism, especially after the Second World War. But this is just an example to see that so you have to consider the date of the publication of the work, then you go outside of the work and you see the period it belongs to. So for example, as I said, 1940, so here it belongs to modernist movement. So I have a preliminary knowledge about the features of what is modernism and its features and the themes, yes, it also treats. So here I can expect from the beginning, and this not only I expect, but I can understand better the work at hand. Another definition, literary movements are terms which group writers whose works have similar subject matter. Subject matter, it means similar themes, writing style or thought. The concept of literary movement implies a grouping through time. As I said, the grouping of writers through time, grouping of writers according to their similarities, common features. So it assumes every age has its characteristic special features. Literary periods share systems of norms which include such things as conventions, sorry for this mistake, conventions, styles, themes, and philosophies. So, yeah, so each period has got features, conventions, style, theme, and even philosophies, of course. Literary movements are the division of literature into categories of similar philosophical, topical, or aesthetic features, as opposed to divisions by genre or period. So, here there is another kind of division or classification. It can also be considered as a literary movement. This is not considered according to theme, but according to similar philosophical thought, right? Topic and aesthetic features. Then, when we know about the time period the literary work belongs to, our understanding and enjoyment of literature is enhanced. Yes, absolutely. We understand better when I situate the work into its context. One of its context is the literary movement it belongs to. Literary movements provide context for discussing and comparing literary texts. Yeah, so it means that I discuss and compare text according to the literary movements, right? In order to have a fully comprehensive view about a literary movement, it is recommended to examine the conditions that created and developed it. Yes, here we talk specifically about a literary movement and how it comes to existence. Because every literary movement, sometimes they are an extension to another previous movement, as it is sometimes as a reaction against a previous literary movement. If we take, for example, Romanticism in America and Realism in America, both are uh, literary movement. Romanticism appeared before, of course, Realism. Uh, Romanticism has, of course, as you know, has its features. It is featured, for example, by mostly by imagination, imaginary places or far places, identification of man with nature, the perfection of man, seeing man as being a perfect individual, etc. Romance, yes, emotions, etc. Then, with the changes in the life, in the social and economic and political life in America, the romantic movement is unable to depict the true scene, the true social scene, the true reality that has appeared due, for example, to the results of industrialization and commercialization in America, to the point that there is a new movement which is called realism, which came as a reaction to romanticism, which is totally or most of the time or mostly, sorry, featured by true depiction of reality, and sometimes it is at which writers mirror realities as it is without going to imagination or too much emotions. It is the true depiction of reality. This is why the name comes realism. So we have got this kind of a movement that comes against as a reaction against the previous movement, as it can we can talk as a continuation, extension to, if we talk about modernism and postmodernism. Well, some people think or see that postmodernism appeared as a reaction against modernism. Of course, modernism is triggered mostly by the First World War, while postmodernism is triggered, of course, in addition to other world conditions, is triggered by the Second World War. So some people see that the postmodernism appears as a reaction against modernism, while others see it as an extension. Okay, with postmodernism, we have got some modernist movement are still present there, but there are, in addition to other new techniques which did not exist before in modernist literature. So I can consider that postmodernism can be to some extent an extension to modernist movement. Okay, new techniques we can see in postmodern literature which did not exist before in modernist literature. If we talk, for example, about metafiction or about pastiche, for example, are these two strong features that are related to mostly to postmodern literature, of course, in addition to other uh, features. So we can say that the literary work is produced in a particular period of time. That means we should not dismiss the period of publication of this literary work, and each period of time belongs to a particular literary movement. right? So the date of the publication of the book, I read a literary text, novel, short story, a poem. I consider the date of publication, and then I relate this date of publication to its adequate literary movement. The learner can read the text in the light of the ideas and features of such a movement. Yes, so the ideas and features, for example, of romantic, let's take realism. I have got the ideas and the features of realism, so I can read the work at hand on the light of realist movement. For example, that such knowledge would shed its light on the comprehension of the text. It's very helpful to understand the text and its analysis, going deeper into analysis. So here uh, we can talk about, for example, literary movements in British literature typically, as we can talk about literary movements in American literature. In general, they are common features, but with some slight differences as the periods of, because British literature is considered as being older than American literature. So this is why we have in time this classification, ancient times, more ancient than American literature, right? So we can talk about the first period called Old English, the second period Middle English period, and you see the date. Middle English starts from the 11th century to the 16th century. And we talk about another literary movement, the Renaissance, from the 16th century to the 17th century. And within the Renaissance movement, we can have sub-movements, right? Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, with their corresponding dates, of course, Caroline age, the Commonwealth period. So every period has got its particular philosophy, style, themes, etc. Right? For the neoclassical period, the Augustan age, the age of sensibility, Romantic period, Victorian period, Edwardian period, Georgian period, modern period, and postmodern period, with their corresponding dates, of course. So, if we talk an illustration, this is an illustration just on a literary movement. We talk about, for example, modernism. Now, it is important, so not only to know the features of a literary movement, but at least we know the background of its appearance. What is the context that triggered and favored the appearance of such literary movement? Here there is a very short historical glimpse, overview, background information about modernism. By the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century, British society underwent radical changes due to the Industrial Revolution and advances in science, technology, and knowledge in general, as in psychology, sociology, and philosophy. In addition to the consequences of the First World War, this new situation led to a desire to break with tradition and innovate in all aspects of life, including art and literature. Therefore, writers broke away with established literary traditions, that means established 19th century literary tradition, to highlight self-consciousness and the fragmentation of the modern society. So by the modernist literature, modernist period, there is a shift to consider what we call self-consciousness, for example, as a result of advances in psychology, right? And the fragmentation of the modern society. This is a result of the industrial society and commercialization, for example. In this regard, writers or poets experiment in subject, matter, style, and form. It means here, considering these changes in the social, cultural, economic life in society. So, writers experiment, it means bring new techniques to literature, whether in themes, subject matter, new techniques in style and form, forms of language, everything we see experimentation. In fact, experimentation is a typical feature to modernist literature, where authors innovate new techniques in writing. This is just a short features of modernist literature. So they are commonly written in the first person narrator. There is a focus on the inner life of characters. This is why we see that many writers, especially British writers, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, deal too much with stream of consciousness, which is related to the inner life of the characters. There are tones that reflect the absurdity of society. Of course, not on in all literary works, but we see these features in some works of modernist literature. Some writers criticize the capitalist and society, the machinery, industrialization. Not all writers are satisfied with materialistic new life. So this is why we have got writers, modernist writers who criticize this new situation, capitalist materialist life, and this is reflected in their writing, especially for if we talk about American modernist writers, the lost generation of writers like Gertrude Stein, Ernest Hemingway, Scott Fitzgerald, who felt marginalized because the society has become more materialistic and capitalist, and people are becoming more materialist. So this is why that they immigrated to Europe, where they experienced their art. They felt better to experience their art there. There is also another feature of stream of consciousness, multiple narrators. Here we mean by multiple narrators means different points of views. Before the 20th century literature, most of the literary works were written using one point of view. I have discussed in an earlier video the meaning of a point of view. Point of view, so it can be only the writer uses one point of view, first person narrator or third person narrator. It depends on his message. While in the modernist literature we can see the two kinds of point of view within the same work. For example, the American writer William Faulkner's novel The Sound and the Fury is written in multiple narrators. Different voices tell the story in this book. This is a good illustration of a modernist novel. There is another feature, non-linear narrative, where writers do not respect the chronology of time, going backward, forward in time, some present, and then at a particular moment in the narrative, the writer takes us to the past, or at a particular point of time, the writer takes us, anticipates the future. So the narrative, there is this new feature in modernist literature, as there is fragmentation, which reflects the modern industrial, capitalist, materialistic society, and there is relativity based on also philosophy. It is also based on a particular philosophy called relativism, where there is no absolute truth, but it is relative to each individual's situation. So this is why relativity, for example, is manifest in the open ending of, for example, a novel, where the writer does not resolve the issue he has raised in his novel, but he keeps the ending open, right? Here too, this is relativity. So every reader is going to imagine himself an ending to this novel he is reading. Therefore, the ending is going to be relative to each, according to each reader. As we can take example of notable British modernist writers, Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, Joseph Conrad, D.H. Lawrence, Dorothy Richardson, Graham Greene, E.M. Forster, W.H. Auden, Seamus Heaney, Wilfred Owens, Dylan Thomas, Robert Graves, Aldous Huxley, etc. And the dramatists Tom Stoppard, George Bernard Shaw, Samuel Beckett, Frank McGuinness, Harold Pinter, and Caryl Churchill, of course, among others. So that's all about literary movement. So it is important to consider each time I come across a literary work, it is I have to consider the date of the publication, and then I relate this date of publication to its corresponding literary movement, because knowing the literary movement the work belongs to is going to be very helpful in understanding the work I am reading at hand. So that's all for literary movement, my viewers. I thank you very much for your attention. Kindly do not forget to subscribe to my channel, to like and share my videos so that the channel can grow, and see you in another video.